Okay, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the National Child Passenger Safety Board, thank you for joining us for the CEU webinar, FMVSS 213 Updates, Rulemaking and Compliance Enforcement. Today's speakers are Allison London. She is a research safety engineer in the Applied Crashworthiness Office since 2005. She works on the research to support the rulemaking efforts for federal motor vehicle safety standards with focus on FMVSS numbers 213, 213A, 213B, 225, in addition to the larger occupant safety standards for frontal and side impacts, FMVSS 208 and 214. Christina Echamendia, a safety standards engineer, has been with NHTSA's rulemaking office since 2009. She works on updating or creating federal motor vehicle safety standards, including FMVSS 213, 213A, 213B, and 225. Last, but certainly not least, we have Kelly Adams Campos, a safety compliance engineer in the Office of Vehicle Safety Compliance. I am Anna Red, the GHSA representative on the National Child Passenger Safety Board. We have planned time to answer questions at the end of the presentations, so please enter your questions in the Q&A box. Thank you. As a reminder, attendees are required to not participate in this webinar if you're operating a motor vehicle. The webinar will be recorded and you can listen to the recording when you safely arrive at your destination. The recording will be posted to carseateducation.org within 1 to 2 days. For the child passenger safety technicians and attendants, the presentation qualifies for one continuing education unit, CEU. Attendance on this webinar is required for at least 45 minutes for the CEU credit. Proof of the attendance will be emailed within 24 hours after the webinar. Please join me in welcoming Allison, Christina, and Kelly.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Christina Chanandia, and I'll be doing the first part of the presentation. Thank you for attending this webinar and your interest in NHTSA's work. We will be talking about FMVSS 213 updates and rulemaking and compliance enforcement. Next slide. This course is specific to child restraint systems, also known as CRSs or car seats, and designed to provide technicians an overview of updates to the safety standards that apply to car seats and how the requirements in those standards are enforced by NHTSA. The course does not provide all the requirements in the updated standards, nor all the legal obligations concerning filing, conducting, or reporting on safety recalls as required by regulations administered by NHTSA. Next slide. We've already done introductions, so next slide. I will be presenting the frontal update information, followed by Allison Loudon presenting the side impact update, and Kelly will be presenting the compliance and enforcement section. Next slide. What is Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard number 213? This standard specifies requirements for child restraint systems sold in the United States that are used in motor vehicles and aircrafts. The performance of this child seats is evaluated in a dynamic sled test simulating a 30-mile-per-hour frontal crash. Its purpose is to help reduce the number of children killed or injured in motor vehicle crashes and aircraft in which child restraints are used. It applies to certain vehicles, like passenger cars, multi-purpose passenger vehicles, trucks, and buses, because they might have built-in systems, built-in child restraints, and to add-on child restraint systems that are used in motor vehicles and aircraft. Next slide. Over the past 2 years, we've issued 2 new rules. In June 2022, the new FMVSS 213A, which is for side impact protection, this final rule was published, and we're going to start to test certain add-on child restraints in a near side impact configuration to ensure their safety. 213A becomes mandatory on June 30th, 2025. So every car seat after that date will have to meet the new requirements for side impact. On December 5th, 2023, the final rule that amended 213 and established a new 213B standard was published. The 213 update in this final rule largely focused on updating labeling and registration requirements, and those updates will be mandatory for child restraints made on or after December 5th, 2024. The same final rule that established 213B focused on amendments for testing child restraint systems in a frontal impact configuration on a new modified test seat bench with the current 213 Hybrid 3 dummies that we've been using. And this update in 213B will become mandatory on December 5th, 2026. At that point, 213B will replace the 213. Also, all the information on these rules can be found in www.regulations.gov. If you are curious about these rules and the details of them, you can find them in these docket numbers. Next slide. Okay, so I'll be talking about the frontal impact. The frontal update modernizes the current 213 standard, and this update included updating the standard seat assembly to be more representative of today's vehicles, changing dummy selection criteria for assessing restraint performance to be more reflective of the real-world use of child restraints today, lessening of restrictions in registration and labeling requirements to give manufacturers more flexibility on how they communicate with their consumers. These changes, we hope that they will increase the owner registration and recall notification for recall notification purposes, and also increase the correct use in car seats. Next slide. So first, let's focus on the bench update, which is mostly, it is part of the 213B standard. On the left side of the screen, you can see it's a picture of the current bench design. This current bench design, the last update happened around 2003. However, in that update, we did not update the cushion. So the cushion is very soft and it's based on a 1974 Chevy Impala. So it's pretty outdated. NHTSA conducted a survey on a more modernized vehicle fleet to understand the fleet's rear seat characteristics. The picture on both pictures on the right show the updated bench design, which is more representative of the current vehicle fleet. And we updated the seat cushion, which was one of the biggest parts of the update. The seat pan and seat back angles. We also updated the anchorages, both for the latch system, the lower anchors, and the tethers, anchorages, locations, the geometry, and the location of them, and the seat belt anchorage locations as well. So this new bench represents an average vehicle in today's fleet. Next slide. We're also updating how we test car seats. While we currently test booster seats with a 3-point belt installation, the current standard tests child seats that can be used forward and rear facing that have an internal harness. They are tested with a 2-point belt installation. The update will require testing these harnessed seats forward facing and rear facing, but they will be installed with a 3-point belt. This is because the vehicle fleet has mostly 3-point belts. Most of the vehicles that you find nowadays we started requiring 3-point belts in all vehicles starting in 2008, but so by now most of the vehicles have these systems in place. The 2-point belt installation requirement will sunset on September 1st, 2029. And this is to give time for the vehicle fleet to reach about 90% of the vehicles with 3-point belts in all rear seats. Next slide. So one of the major changes was the seat foam that we were using. And we tried to target the average dynamic stiffness in vehicles. This is a plot where we have a displacement on the horizontal line, and in the vertical we have force. And this is just illustrates the stiffness characteristics of different cushions. The blue line at the bottom is how the current FMVSS 213 seat cushion is, and you can see it's very soft. You can see a large displacement, or basically how much it compresses with a lower force. That shows that it's a very soft foam. We also looked at the European foams that are used in their standards or consumer programs, but the foams that they used were very stiff. On the opposite side, the black lines, you can see that you have high forces and very small displacement. The gray lines represent what we did in the vehicle fleet. That's where the characteristics of the foam are in real vehicles. And we designed a foam that was in the middle so that it would cover an average vehicle, the average vehicle fleet characteristics. So the new foam is a stiffer foam. It's representative of the vehicle fleet and prevents bottoming out, which I'll show in the next slide. This video shows similar child restraints on the new seat assembly on the top compared to the existing seat assembly shown on the bottom. On the left, you see a 12-month-old crabby dummy, which is an infant dummy in an infant seat. And the test on the right is a hybrid 3-6-year-old dummy in a booster seat configuration. You can see that during the impact, the seat cushion in the new bench is stiffer and doesn't compress as much. And in the current bench, especially on the lower right, you can see how much it bends and bottoms out, which is not really representative of what's happening in real world. So getting this foam is what we were aiming for. Next slide. In current 213, rear-facing car seats that are recommended for children within 22 and 40 pounds, weighing 22 and 40 pounds, are subject to testing with a 3-year-old dummy. However, we have no defined test procedure for seating this dummy in the current standard, which causes labs to test in different ways. It is also difficult to fit the 3-year-old dummy's legs because it pushes the car seat back. So it's not really giving us a good installation, and it can cause other issues. The current standard also has the crabby 12-month-old dummy tested in rear-facing and forward-facing configurations. For our frontal upgrade or update for 213, we are incorporating a test procedure for rear-facing car seats with a 3-year-old dummy, where we put the legs against the seat back and we remove the knee joints so that you can allow a little bit of hyperflexion, reducing the bracing that was causing that the legs were causing in the past. We also changed the dummy selection criteria, and child seats now weighing between 22 and 30 pounds are tested only with a 12-month-old crabby and not the 3-year-old. So we're doing some changes in that dummy selection criteria. Now, the child seats weighing between 30 and 40 pounds will be tested with a 3-year-old. These dummy selection criteria changes would better align the dummy used in tests for infant carriers with the size and weight of children, what children typically weight for that are restrained in infant carriers, which are typically children up to 1-year-olds and under 30 pounds. So with also in this update, we are only using the 12-month-old Krabby in rear-facing mode. And this is mostly due to a labeling change that we will discuss in the next slide. Next slide. So all these changes that I've talked about are going to or are included in the 213B update. So those are the ones that will be mandatory in 2026. However, the updates for 213 that are coming up sooner this coming December are still part of the 213 standard. This this and also these labeling and registration requirements are the ones that are probably going to be more visible to you. You're going to see these changes because the testing, those things are kind of transparent for you and for the consumers. But these few slides that I'm going to present are changes that you are going to be able to see as we move along into the new requirements. So the current standard has prescribed statements that have to be in the required warning label. There is a current statement used in convertible car seats that say use only in a rear-facing position when using it with an infant weighing less than, and the manufacturer has to insert a weight less 20 pounds or less. This statement will no longer be required. It's been causing confusion in the field, and I think everybody's going to be happy to see it gone. The current standard also requires a prescribed statement on the overall weight and height recommendations for the car seat in the warning label. The updated standard will no longer require the prescribed statement, but instead we will require the same information, but for each car CRS mode, not in a warning label. But not in the warning label. The manufacturers will use the statements or diagrams or any other information to provide that information elsewhere. Also, the current standard allows for a minimum weight recommendation for booster seats of 30 pounds. The updated standard will require a minimum weight recommendation of 40 pounds. This is to promote the use of harnessed car seats in more 3- and 4-year-olds, delaying the booster seat transition a little bit later. To increase the number of children under age 1 who are transported rear-facing, we are now requiring a minimum weight recommendation for forward-facing car seats of 26.5 pounds, which is the weight of a 95th percentile 1-year-old. The change to this 26.5 pound would capture almost all 1-year-olds that are in the field and would therefore increase the number of children under age 1 transported in rear facing. And this change to 26.5 pounds is one of the reasons we are no longer testing in forward facing with a 12-month-old Krabby, because that's a 20-pound dummy, which would be not within the weight limit recommendations from the car seat. Next slide. So the registration card has 2 parts, the information card and the postcard. This is the current information card, and it's very prescriptive. Everything that's in the card is words that manufacturers have to use, except for a few spots where they need to put their specific information, and they have to be black and white. Next slide. The updated requirements will allow manufacturers to use their own words to transmit the same information. We're still requiring them to tell the consumer how important it is to register the child seat, how to register the child seat, that they've already paid the postage and it's pre-addressed, the postcard. Also that if they have an electronic registration, give instructions for that. The manufacturers may also optionally provide statements that say that this card is not for marketing prep purposes, and also we're allowing other colors so that it is more eye-catching, and hopefully that will improve or increase the registrations. We're also allowing other codes, like if they want to put a QR code or any other thing that is related to the registration itself, it will be allowed. Next slide. The postcard part of the registration card will be mostly unchanged. The current one has like the information that the consumer has to provide is postage paid, pre-address. There should be no other information in place. So those are still the requirements. One thing that will change is that we will allow other colors to appear. Right now, we only allow black and white. So this one is mostly unchanged, but you might see a more colorful scheme. Next slide. And here I am handing it over to Allison Loudon to present the side impact.
Thanks, Christina. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about the FMVSS 213A side impact. FMVSS 213A final rule was released on June 30th, 2022. This is a new test configuration for CRSs and simulates a rear seat environment on a sled system with a protruding door impacting the CRS. The requirement will apply to child restraints designed for children up to 40 pounds or up to 43 inches. Child restraints will be tested and evaluated for the following. The newly regulated Q3S dummy will be used for head injury, chest injury, and structural integrity of the child restraint. And the 12-month Karabi will be used to monitor the head-to-door contact assessment and structural integrity of the child restraint as well. The effective date of this rulemaking is June 30th, 2025, which means all CRSs sold in the U.S. will have to pass the federal regulation. Next slide. As previously mentioned, the Q3S is more recent federalized ATD with its first implementation into the side impact sled test. It was developed based on a Q series of dummies. It has enhanced lateral biofidelity, which makes it optimal for side impact testing. It's unique in such that it's the only currently regulated child ATD that can measure lateral loads in the thorax and shoulder. Additionally, it has an omnidirectional neck, which means it can be used in both frontal and sled test conditions. Next slide. This schematic shows the configuration for FMVSS 214. That is our current NHTSA standard for adult occupant safety and side impacts on the left-hand side. This test configuration represents two cars moving through an intersection. On the right side is our 213A side impact test condition, which represents the vehicle-to-vehicle side impact crash of small passenger cars. The test buck is set up at 10 degrees from perpendicular to simulate forward motion in the rear seat environment with the intruding door. This test simulates a near side impact environment. Next slide. In order to understand how NHTSA developed this test protocol, we conducted several tests representing the 214 test configuration with child ATDs in the rear. Several additional cameras were used to capture occupant kinematics. On the left side, it is showing the overhead view of a moving deformable barrier impacting into the side of a vehicle. And on the right side, you can see the Q3S in a forward-facing convertible at the impact side of the vehicle. As you can see, the impactor impacts the door intrudes into the occupant space, and the CRS and Q3S ATD rotate forward and towards the door. Next slide. This information captured from these tests, such as kinematics, acceleration from door sills, and door intrusion, were used to develop the corridors and test parameters of the current 213A procedure. The video shows the crash setup compared to the actual sliding seat setup for 213A. As you can see, the occupant movements are very similar between the two test conditions. This test condition again represents a near side impact environment based on the side impact test performed for vehicles. Field data suggests that 92% of all side crashes with restrained children are of equal or lower crash severity. Next slide. So as previously mentioned by Christina, the modifications for a more representative bench for frontal was also used for the side impact bench assembly. The overall bench uses the same foam cushions and the same belt anchorages attachments. But additional modifications were made for this test condition. The sliding seat assembly is mounted with additional hardware to mount the fixture to the sliding rail. This allows the bench to float into the simulated door structure as seen in the videos. One thing to note, due to the size of the bench, the CRS is installed slightly off center. This is done in order for the CRS to rotate about the seat platform when impacted. The schematic above shows the setup for the side impact test protocol. Next slide. So this is the 213A test. Shown here is the Q3S in the forward-facing condition in a CRS mounted on the bench with latch, or it can be matched with 3-point belt configuration. As the video plays, you can see the seat slides on the rails to impact the wall. This simulates the intruding wall as previously shown in the crash videos. You will see the ATD rotates in the seat as it did in the vehicle crash environment. The ATD is equipped with instrumentation to provide data for the head injury and thorax injury. The CRS is inspected post-test for CRS structural damage. Next slide. So, and this is a 12-month Krabby in a rear-facing infant seat. And you can see through the CRS kinematics, it's very much similar to the forward-facing, and it rotates across the bench. This ATD does not have instrumentation, but through camera coverage and contact tape, it can be seen if it makes contact with the wall. Additional video coverage will be used in this setup. Next slide. So one of our biggest questions we have received are why we only focused on near side. Real world data has suggested that the majority of critical injuries have been with occupants in near side environment due to striking interior surfaces such as an intruding door, which NHTSA simulates in the side impact test. In far side impacts, the impact surfaces may vary considerably during the crash dynamics, and therefore difficult to characterize a repeatable test condition. So therefore, we are only looking at near side impacts for our side impact evaluation. Next slide. Another big concern is why side impact is only regulated for children weighing up to 40 pounds and 43 inches. This is due to the design of the CRSs and how they raise the heavier and older children in rear occupant space. Based on studies, the agency determined that these scenarios will be protected by the vehicle's curtain airbag. Thus, improving the child's side impact protection will be captured in our current FMVSS 214 test protocols with the 5th percentile female in the rear seat. Additionally, as previously mentioned, we currently only have one child ATD, the Q3S, that can measure injury in the side impact environment. And we cannot simulate airbag conditions in this test mode at this time. Next slide. So this brings us to conclusion of all of our updates to 213 and A and B, and this is our compliance timeline. The current timeline for implementation of these regulations are as follows, with dates subject to change pending petitions. But at this time, this is the current timeline. The first update will be with the labeling requirements and will be in effect at the end of the calendar year, December 5th, 2024. The updated side impact test, FMVSS 213A, would be in effect by June 30th, 2025. And the updated FMVS 213B, the frontal impact, will be in effect by December 5th, 2026. Hopefully with these updated rules, we will drive safety initiatives in both the frontal and side test conditions for child restraints and the children who will be riding in these seats. So this next slide. This concludes all of our things. Now we're going to have Kelly speak on the compliance and enforcement role that she serves as.
Thanks, Allison. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Before I get into our compliance and enforcement activities, let me briefly discuss the U.S. certification process. In the United States, we use a manufacturer self-certification process. This means that the manufacturers themselves certify that their products meet the applicable FMVSS. Neither DOT nor NHTSA approve any product. This is in contrast to the EU, where approval of products must be granted before a product can be sold in the market. This includes child restraint systems. Manufacturers are required to certify in good faith that their products comply with the applicable FMVSS. In the case of child restraint systems, once they have done that, they are required to put the following statement on the child restraint. This child restraint system conforms to all applicable federal motor vehicle safety standards. We know from our enforcement activities that most child restraint systems that are certified are compliant. But despite the care manufacturers may exercise in their certification, sometimes products get into the marketplace without fully complying with the standards. Or sometimes products claim to be certified to FMVSS 213 when 213 does not apply. That is, the product is not regulated by 213. When the product is not regulated by 213, product cannot have that certification statement. We fully encourage technicians and consumers to file safety complaints, which I'll discuss in a bit, to bring such products and any potentially non-compliant products to our attention. Now, the Safety Act authorizes NHTSA to conduct inspections or investigations that may be necessary to enforce the standard. We enforce the standard by purchasing equipment like child restraints from the marketplace and testing to requirements of the standard at independent test labs. Again, because manufacturers are required to self-certify and we don't approve any products, our testing does not constitute nor confirm a manufacturer's certification of a product. Additionally, we don't test all available products, meaning we don't test all available child restraints. We don't test to all the applicable requirements or every claim a manufacturer makes. But in general, consumers and technicians should rely on a manufacturer's certification of a child restraint system. However, because we know that sometimes that is not always the case, products get out that may not comply, there are some visual indicators that you can look for to identify potentially unsafe and non-compliant child restraint systems. Some of these indicators might include that the child restraint system is missing the conformity statement that I read to you earlier. Maybe it doesn't display the date of manufacture. It's missing the printed instructions. This child restraint system might not have the registration card affixed to the child restraint system. Or child restraint systems with internal harnesses might be missing the lower anchorage attachments. Any one of these items missing from a child restraint are good indicators that the child restraint does not comply or may not comply with the standard. So consumers play an important role in finding safety problems. As technicians, if you notice potentially non-compliant child restraint systems, we encourage you and the caregiver that you're helping, if you are indeed at an inspection, who owns the child restraint system, we encourage them to file a complaint, also known as a VOQ or a vehicle owner's questionnaire. This is because we cannot and do not see, touch, test every product that we regulate. So we really encourage you and want to hear from the public to file the complaints. So if you come across a child restraint system that you believe is unsafe, we want you to gather as much documentation as you can. Receipts, emails, packing slips, photos of the child restraint and the issue that you find, even your child seat check documentation, if applicable. Again, we want both you and the caregiver to file a complaint or a VOQ. Include the documentation that you've gathered and save the child restraint system if the manufacturer does not replace it. We might want it from you at a later date. We like technicians to educate parents to call the manufacturer to find out maybe the issue falls under warranty. Maybe the manufacturer would like the child restraint system back, and maybe the manufacturer will send a replacement. Additionally, the documentation that you gather for filing your complaint might be handy for the child restraint manufacturer as well. So you might want to consider sending that to them in addition. So we encourage filing complaints even if the manufacturer has satisfied your concern. You can file complaints by phone or online at this number and at this website. In addition to the documentation I mentioned earlier, it would be really important, and most beneficial to us if you can also provide the child restraint system manufacturer name, the model's name, the model number, and the date of manufacture of the child restraint. We want you to know that every complaint gets read by NHTSA. It may not be read at the pace in which you desire, but we do read every complaint. When we see complaints, it may cause us to investigate the issue. We may want to reach out to the individual who makes the complaint to get more information. We may contact the manufacturer, we may test the product or take other actions. So what happens when you file a complaint or a VOQ? As a result of filing a complaint, we may open an investigation, as I said. As a result of an investigation or the testing that we conduct as part of our compliance program, or even by the manufacturer itself, who can determine a non-compliance or safety defect on their own, recalls can occur. It might be good for you to know that when a manufacturer does not agree to conduct a recall, we have the authority to force one, but we don't like to have to do that if we don't have to. As technicians, you already know and are encouraged to remind caregivers that registering their child restraints are an extremely important step in being able to be notified by the manufacturer of the recall. Recalls of child restraint systems are remedied by the manufacturer either by repairing or replacing the affected child restraint system at no charge to the consumer or refunding the purchase price. You can look up recalls or public investigations and complaints at the website shown on the screen. There are 4 categories: vehicle, car seat, tire, and equipment. Let's go there now. So for the purposes of this course, we're going to go to car seat. And I'm just going to randomly pick a brand, Graco. And on the search results screen, you have 5 columns: the product's name, recalls, investigations, complaints, and manufacturer communications. Clicking on any of the blue numbered items that are higher than a value of 0 will take you to another screen with additional information. So I clicked on the one recall, and if you hit the plus sign, you'll get more information on the recall. If you scroll down, then there'll be some more blue text, which will have additional links to more information. In this case, we have additional products that are affected by the recall, and we have documents associated with the recall. These documents can include things like the manufacturer's Part 573 recall report. That is their report that they are conducting a recall and they have a non-compliant product. It can include the owner notification information, NHTSA's own recall acknowledgement to the manufacturer, and other information. Oops. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I think I skipped a, yep, sorry about that. So as I previously mentioned, the OVSC, the Office of Vehicle Safety Compliance, from where I'm from, is the office at NHTSA that enforces FMVSS 213. And we do that by purchasing the child restraints from the marketplace and testing them at independent test labs. We post our compliance test reports to our database to inform the public and interested parties. We don't test every vehicle or item of motor vehicle equipment, which means we don't test every child restraint system. And again, as I previously mentioned, because manufacturers have a self-certification duty to certify their products to the applicable requirements, our reports are not meant to be read as a determination of whether or not the product tested complies or does not comply with the standards. This also is because we don't test every applicable requirement in the standards or every claim a manufacturer may make. This website is where our posted test reports reside, beginning with 2003. There are 5 categories, including car seats: vehicles, car seats, tires, motorcycle helmets, and other. Let's go there now. So every page has this, I'm going to show you the language at the bottom. Every page has the same language. So we have 3 other resources at this site that relate to the safety of products that we regulate. Here we have some frequently asked questions about the compliance test report database itself to help guide you through using it. We have a link to the recall search tool, and we have a link to understanding NHTSA's regulatory tools. When we're on the car seat tab or page, there are 5 categories from which you can refine your search: brand, model, program year, test type, and test results. Brand is simply the list of different brands of child restraints we have in the database. We have the models. Program year refers to the fiscal year in which the test took place. Test type is right now component, frontal, and inspection. In the future, we will be adding side for side impact. And test results. Issue identified means that there was a failure to a requirement that the product was tested to in the test, and no issues identified means that the tests that were conducted were satisfied in a compliant manner. So let's just choose brand, and I'll hit search. This website was recently updated, so it's works much better than it used to. It's much more user friendly. So then we have some columns of information. So we have the brand, different models under that brand, the test types, program year, test results, report number, and the report. So then this PDF icon, if you clicked on that, that would take you to the actual report, which you are free to download, print, and use as you would like. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, Allison, and Kelly. Some great information. So now it's time for questions. If you haven't already, please enter your questions in the Q&A box. And I believe I saw some questions, and there's some questions. First question, I guess I don't know if it's a comment. It says the new recalls will also allow the optional collection of a phone number. Not sure if that's a question or a comment.
Correct. I think I'm assuming that they're talking about the registration card. We are allowing to have, right now we are not collecting the telephone number, but things have changed. People keep their phones longer, so the telephone number will be another field. Correct.
Could the slide with the timeline for new FMVSS 213 rules be shared with all attendees with the certificates of attendance? It's very helpful. They find that helpful. Would you be able to share that timeline?
Yes, we can share. We can share the timeline. Yes.
Yeah, and it won't come out automatically with the confirmation email. Zoom sends that automatically within 24 hours. But if you want it, I'll get it from the presenters and then I'll send it out.
Are all investigations made public on the NHTSA website?
No. That's the answer I can give.
Okay. If we notice the wrong testing report is recorded under the wrong manufacturer/model name, how would we report that mix-up?
My information, I think, is in this presentation. You certainly can reach out to me.
Next question. Is there any information from NHTSA about when they will be updating car seat information, their Safer Car app? It's not up to date at all, I believe is what they're saying.
Yeah, I don't handle that, so I don't want to say something that is not correct. I think that's probably the consumer information group.
Yeah.
So,
I
you
can
know, I
discuss
would
that
have
with
to,
consumer information.
Will you be listing the web addresses at the end of the Zoom meeting?
well, we can share the presentation. So, because I think we put all the links there for people to reach, whether it's the dockets or all the recall complaints, compliance information that Kelly presented.
Then the meeting's being recorded, so they can go back and look at the recording to
Yeah.
get those. Can you give any idea of when a final rule might be issued on the NPRM having to do with updates to FMVSS 225?
But right now, well, the regulatory agenda hasn't been updated for the spring. We should have a projected date in the spring agenda. If you go to reginfo.gov, there is a link to the unified agenda where we publish the dates or the things in rulemaking that will be published in the near future, like within the next year or so. It's not always, you know, it's an estimate. They're not hard dates. Unfortunately, the date that is current from the fall agenda is outdated, so it's not useful, and I cannot share until that is published. I cannot share the dates, the updated dates. So, but if you go to reginfo.gov and click on the unified agenda, you have to sort for Department of Transportation and then look for NHTSA. There should be a date. It should be coming out probably in the next couple of weeks. I would say it's usually in June or the end of June. So
What did Christina say the 26.5 pounds was representative of?
it's the 95th percentile 1-year-old.
Did you put up the contact information again? I'm not sure which contact information they're requesting for.
Probably ours.
The
If you
last slide,
pull it
maybe?
up, yeah.
Question, it says, what's going on with the revolve seats?
There's nothing that we're gonna, there's no response to that, sorry.
Okay. Well, there still be height minimums and maximums. It stated you won't require the language anymore, but wasn't clear if you should still require specific height.
Well, we usually, the minimums are usually, we just have the weight limits for weight on the rear facing, or let's say minimum forward facing, which will be 26.5. Right now, we don't technically have one. It's been done mostly by that statement that we're deleting, where they say that use a 20-pound child or under in rear facing. So it's been like the default, but that's based on a 50 percentile child restraint. I'm sorry, child, a 1-year-old, 50 percentile 1-year-old. So basically, we're not, with that 20 pound, you're still leaving outside of rear facing a lot of kids. So this changed to 26.5 pounds. It's aligning more to the 1-year minimum weight that they should be in rear facing, which aligns to basically try to cover, doing it by a recommendation, not so much as a, you know, because every child is different. There might be, we might even capture some older than 1-year-olds. If it's a small 1-year-old that is under 26.5, they will have to keep them rear facing, which is what we want. So it's not, because children are, you know, very different in sizes and weights. They vary a lot. You cannot have a strict, you know, line. So, but the minimums, we only have a the minimum for forward-facing car seats, the minimum that they can recommend or that they will be able to recommend is 26.5 and 30 pounds. Went from 30 pounds to 40 pounds for booster seats. But we don't have other limitations on that. That is based on the manufacturers, if that's what they design the products to. We're just trying to align that to our recommendations so that it's all 1-year-olds should be in rear facing, and then more 3 and 4-year-olds in harness seats. Obviously, that's the transition again to boosters, but depending if it's a small child or a larger one.
Anna? Anna?
Yes.
Can I make it? I just wanted to go back. I'm sorry. So I wanted to, maybe it might have given a little disservice to the person who asked the question about the revolve. I was assuming maybe, that they wanted more information that's already made public. I cannot give out any more information than what's been made public, but if anyone is not aware of what's available, the website where I showed where you can look up recalls and public investigations, you can search on the revolve and you can see what documents are available and made public at that site.
Thank you. There's a couple of more questions. Is there any information about CR angle requirements? Example, is this something that's tested? And where can we find more information on what angle an infant car seat must be? And is this something we can measure?
Of angle, like
Yes, angle. Angle
oh, you mean
requirements.
like if the seat is angled?
I believe they're probably is
The
this
recline
something-
angle, maybe?
The recline angle, yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking they're asking.
I
Well,
think when they test car seats, right, in enforcement, we use the specified angle by the car seat manufacturer. So it should be in the test reports of all the different angles that were tested. But typically it's one, and if it falls in the level line or bubble, that's usually where it's tested.
If the new forward-facing standard is a minimum of 26.5 pounds, will NHTSA require states to change laws that still word forward-facing can happen at 1-year-old and 20 pounds?
no, that statement is going away. Well, the one we never had an age. Some manufacturers added the 1 year. We do not have an age in 213. We only had the 20 pound, but that statement will go away. So, because I think most people were using that as a goal. Oh, I got to 20 pounds. Let's move it around. So it had that problem of the confusion and also the limit itself. The 20 pound, again, that was based on a 50th percentile 1-year-old, which was leaving out half of the kids under 1 or up to 1 years old that could potentially be put in a forward-facing child seat. So I hope that answered the question.
Okay. Is there any proposed rulemaking related to the ability to expedite removal of non-compliant seats from the market? It says the recent spare of non-compliant counterfeit seats has brought many concerning products to the market, and families purchase these without understanding what they should be looking for.
Well, I don't think that that's a rulemaking. I mean, we only, like, the standards only apply to car seats that are subject to the car seat. I think it's more, I think I'll let Kelly, because I know that they have some ways to handle, or how to handle, like, because I know that there's different types. So Kelly, can you add on to that?
Right. Well, I don't know that they're talking about counterfeit, because counterfeit is not under our purview, but seats that look like they're not compliant to the standard. That's why we would encourage you to file a complaint. We are a small group, and there are a lot of egregious players in the field, and we do the best we can to investigate and get a lot of the bad players out of the marketplace, but there might be ones out there that we have not been made aware of, so we encourage you to continue to let us know. But we're doing the best that we can. That's not really all I can say. We're aware of many. It takes a long time and it's hard to reach a lot of these sellers and manufacturers.
Says it's NHTSA addressing manufacturer concerns with the new site impact bench and not being able to get consistent, repeatable test results.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that I don't understand the question itself.
Is NHTSA addressing manufacturer concerns with the new site impact bench
Oh,
and not being able to get consistent, repeatable test results?
well, I know that, I mean, enforcement put out a request for comment where we're reviewing their issues, their complaints, to see how we can, you know, like evaluate, but I think that that's still in the process, so I don't know.
We're aware of some issues manufacturers have brought to us, and we're assessing those issues.
It says infant seats that require the base and cannot be used without it. Is it still okay?
Are we requiring, I guess they're asking is, can we test with and without the base?
Right. It says infant seats that require the base and cannot be used without it. Is that still okay? Is what it sounds like.
I think yes, right, Christina?
It's a there is a public investigation on a product that falls in that category. I'm not going to name the manufacturer, but if someone wants to search, they will find that investigation on the recall site under public investigations.
And it says, when will these changes be displayed on instructions on current car seats?
When will you're asking about the instructions?
When will these
Um,
changes be
change.
displayed on instructions on current car seats? Yes.
What instructions? You mean like the updates for the labeling and all of that? Or, I mean, everything, if it's related to the rulemaking, all the updates about the weight limits and how manufacturers present the recommendations and registration and everything should be on car seats manufactured after December of 2024. There's some that might do it early because we allow early compliance, so you might already start seeing it. But car seats manufactured after that date should have all these changes. Again, pending the date, we have some petitions for reconsideration, but that all the dates for side, frontal, and the update, the labeling updates, we're reviewing that. But they cannot have confusing information. That's in the standard. They cannot say one thing in one place and another thing in another one. That would contradict the requirements.
All right, and we're gonna go ahead and stop the questions there.
Yeah, there was lots
rest
of
of-
questions.
Yeah, you have all the emails. You're welcome to email me as well. We're gonna go ahead and finish up the last few slides here.
So before you go, we have a few closing announcements. We hope that you're enjoying the NCPSB webinar series. We're having fun delivering them. We hope you will join us in July for another webinar with NHTSA, where they will discuss the recent publications, child passenger safety deaths and traffic crashes involving alcohol impaired drivers. At this time, we do not know if it's been approved for a CEU. Once we know, we'll register. The registration will open up. We know that you work with some amazing CPSTs and instructors and teams. So please take the time to nominate them for the 2025 National Child Passenger Safety Awards. Our goal is to have at least one nomination for every state. You can nominate an inspiring CPST at cpsboard.org/awards. We're currently looking for the public safety fire/EMS representative to join the National Child Passenger Safety Board for the May 2025 through May 2028 term. If you or anyone you know is in the fire and EMS field and actively working in child passenger safety and interested in applying, visit cpsboard.org/learn-about-the-board/board-membership. Or please email secretariat@cpsboard.org with questions. The webinar recording will be posted at criseseducation.org within 1 to 2 days. For the child passenger safety technicians in attendance, the presentation qualifies for 1 CEU. Proof of attendance will be emailed within 24 hours after the webinar. You must enter the webinar information into your profile at certsafekids.org to receive the CE for recertification. Thank you for so much for joining us today. Have a safe day, and thank you all for what you do in keeping child passengers and their families safe. Kendra, will you please stop the recording?